At first, 2019's remake of Pet Sematary might seem like a shameless cash grab, and that Hollywood has run out of original ideas. And, well, that's probably true. It's even been reported that the only reason they made this movie was because Paramount was about to lose the rights to the original book. But the director at least said when making an adaptation, you want to do as much new, fresh things as you can, because there's already an existing movie. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're staying true to the essence of the book. I like that, and it gives me some hope that Pet Sematary will be alright. So, does it hold up to the original? Let's find out. It opens up with the Creed family moving into their new home. Lewis was tired of working the graveyard shift as an ER doctor and wanted to slow down a bit and be with his family. For the first couple of days at least, it seems like he got his wish. Nothing but bloody noses and fevers.
Sounds serious.
Next, we see some kids heading to the pet cemetery. This time wearing some weird-looking masks for really no reason. They say it's some sort of ritual, but I think they were just trying to creep us out a little bit. Ellie is intrigued by this, and she sneaks out of the house to see the cemetery for herself. While there, she sees the wood barrier and starts to climb it when Judd stops her. She falls down, and he helps her up. Her new neighbor is nice to her and helps heal her scrapes, but he comes off a little more creepy than helpful. Rachel seems to sense this too, and they quickly head back home, as Judd warns them the woods aren't safe. That night, Ellie asks why people live longer than pets, and Lewis, being a man of science, he gives her a very scientific response, saying they aren't sure if there is a heaven or not. Rachel, on the other hand, doesn't like this explanation, thinking her daughter is still just a kid and not ready to completely lose her faith like her father has. Then we see our first flashback into Rachel's troubled past with her sister Zelda. This time, things happen a little bit different than in the first movie. Here, Rachel's parents leave her alone to look after her sister, and she has to feed her. Instead of taking the food up to her, she uses the dumbwaiter. But when Zelda reaches in, she falls down the shaft, which kills her. So here, Rachel is much more responsible for her sister's death. The next day at work, Lewis gets his first big accident. Victor Pascal. Again, he tries to save him, but he's really messed up and not gonna make it. He dies, and Lewis takes it pretty hard. That night, he's awakened by Pascal's ghost and taken to the graveyard. He tells Lewis that this is a place of peace, where the dead rest. Do not go to the place where the dead walk. Lewis tries to climb the barrier, but Pascal stops him, saying,
The ground is sour!
Then Lewis wakes up in bed, but with dirty feet. It's now Halloween, and Ellie is super excited to go trick-or-treating, and that's when Judd motions to Lewis to come over. The family's cat Church has been run over and killed. Not wanting Ellie to see her dead pet, the guys tell her to run along, and then they agree to handle it that night. Lewis starts to dig in the pet cemetery, but there's a chill in the air, and Judd just can't help himself. Ellie really left an impression on him, and he doesn't want her to learn about Church just yet. So he does it. He takes Lewis to the burial ground. The path here is really creepy, with tons of fog in the woods and even a swamp to trudge through, with bones in the water. Once they get there, Lewis buries the cat, and he wonders why he's doing all this. Judd, knowing he wouldn't believe him if he told him the truth, just keeps quiet. The next morning, Ellie's parents wake her up to tell her that Church ran away. But Ellie knows better, because he was at her window last night, and now he's hanging out in the closet. Lewis takes a look, and sure enough, tiny footprints. As he opens the door, boom! There's Church, back from the dead. Trying to get to the bottom of what just happened, Lewis goes over to talk to his neighbor. Now, I'm just gonna have to stop here for a minute because I noticed Judd is drinking Ham's beer. Have you ever had a Ham's? I swear, it's the cheapest beer I've ever had. One time at a bar, I got a can for 50 cents. 50 cents for a beer, and it wasn't that long ago either.
Buy a round of ham.
Anyway, all Judd can really tell him is that there are places in this world that are old, and no one knows about.
Nobody knows what that place is, what happens in that stony ground. But the soil of a man's heart is stonier, Lewis.
Not getting the answers he wanted, he does some research, finding more mysterious cases throughout the years. While looking around, he stumbles upon the story of the Wendigo. And unlike the first film that kinda just hinted at the idea, here they confirm it. There's something out there in the woods. And maybe it's that spirit that's bringing these things back from the dead.
It's just a loon.
As he tucks his daughter into bed, she mentions how she doesn't want Church to sleep with her anymore, and she wants to move back to Boston. Rachel can also sense that something isn't right about this place. She's still traumatized by her sister, hearing her pound on the walls, and then seeing the bathroom mirror as a dumbwaiter. With the family having a hard time, Lewis decides to go big for Ellie's birthday party and invite everyone they know. At her party, all the kids are goofing around, playing hide-and-go-seek or something, and Ellie and Gage run to a hiding spot. And, surprise, surprise, Gage wanders into the middle of the road. Oh boy, here we go again. I guess just brace yourself. It had to happen. But wait, Lewis gets him this time. The truck flips, and now it hits Ellie.
See, I pulled a sneaky on you.
The family agrees it's time to move back home, and Rachel and Gage go with her parents, while Lewis stays behind to wrap up his job. And, well, you know. Knowing that Judd would try to stop him, he goes over to his house and drugs him. He passes out right there, and now Lewis is free to dig up his daughter and give her an improper burial. Back in Boston, Gage wakes up screaming about Pascal, and sure enough, he's there to guide them back home. But the deed is done, and Ellie is back. At first, she talks about what happened and what she remembers. She's not full-blown evil yet, just really sketchy. Even so, Lewis is happy she's home, and he tucks her into bed for the night. The next morning, Judd finally wakes up, and he knows what Lewis did. Judd goes over to check on him, and he's not letting him into his house. Before he leaves, he says it's not too late to undo what you did, telling him to basically kill his daughter. As he leaves, he sees Ellie in the window, and she grabs a scalpel. So, you know what that means. He goes home and he grabs his gun. And as he does so, he takes a brief moment to look at his wife. Has he been through all this before? He hears something upstairs, and you know it's coming. He's gonna get it. He kicks the bed away, and nothing. Ellie's not there. they pulled another fast one on you. As he's walking downstairs, that's when she gets him. Right through the foot this time. Ouch! He falls down and loses the gun. As Ellie goes after him, she sort of transforms into his dead wife, and she says she hates him for bringing her back, and now she's suffering. They're both gonna bring him back so he can suffer too. And that's the end of Judd. Lewis is looking for Ellie when Rachel shows up, relieved to see that he's okay. But when she notices the dirty shoes and bloody hands, she knows something is up. Then she sees Ellie, and she really knows something is up. Lewis tries to explain to her that he wasn't ready to say goodbye, and now they have a second chance. But Rachel isn't buying it. She knows this isn't right, and that girl isn't her daughter. Rachel has another disturbing dream about her sister, and when she wakes up, Ellie is there to take her out of her misery. She gets a couple good stabs in, but Rachel is able to escape, grab Gage, and hide out in a room, where her only exit is the window. She drops Gage to his father down below and goes to jump herself, but she's too late, and Ellie gets her first, stabbing her in her side, which kills her. Her final words to Lewis:
"Don't bury me in that place."
What?
Well, the good news is he doesn't. The bad news is Ellie does. Lewis wakes up and runs to the pet cemetery where he finds his dead daughter. He fights her and he gets the upper hand. He's about to cut her head off with a freaking shovel, but he hesitates. You never hesitate. And the undead Rachel stabs him with a cross. The girls drag him up the mountain, and now the family just needs one more to be whole again. The remake of Pet Sematary is in some ways better than the first. But did it need to happen? No. The original still holds up pretty well today. But I did like the changes they made to at least keep you on your toes. I liked how Rachel was more responsible for Zelda's death, and the twist of Ellie getting hit by the truck instead of Gage came out of nowhere. A lot of people didn't like that, but I thought they handled it pretty well. At first, you see Gage start wandering into the road, and you just think, uh-oh, here it comes, brace yourselves. But then his dad saves him, and Ellie dies. Because she's old enough to know what's going on, she's able to tell her parents what it feels like to be dead. I thought she did a great job, both when she was alive and when she came back. Besides John Lithgow, she's definitely the standout actor in this movie. And speaking of Lithgow, he had such a tough role to play and had to fill some pretty big shoes. Literally. Fred Gwynn did such a great job in the first one, and he made the movie for me. Now, I love John Lithgow. He's in my favorite family Bigfoot movie after all, but here, I feel like he just wasn't given quite enough to work with. I like Judd to be more like the family's grandpa, loving and caring, doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. But here they made Lithgow more like the family's creepy uncle. And really, no one can match Gwyn'S voice. I could nitpick about some of the other things, like how Pascal and Rachel's parents are barely there. The film is too dark to see at times, and now Gage has no purpose, other than to trick you into thinking he's about to get hit by that truck. 2019's Pet Sematary is the classic example of a studio wanting to make money, but a team that's at least passionate to the source material, but has some good ideas of their own. I would recommend that you sit down and read the original novel by Stephen King. But sometimes you just don't have the time, or you just want to watch a movie instead, and that's fine. In that case, I'd say watch the original. The remake isn't bad, but it just doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi that the first one had. I give it 2.5 cheap hams beers out of 4.
He must have been unconscious in shock or something.
Good thing you're not fed.